So, hey everyone, I'm Evan Gatesman, and you're listening to the Sustainability Podcast from Nevada Conservation League, where we're working to create conservation conversations. And for those who don't know us, we are the independent political voice of Nevada's conservation community. And so we work to maintain and enhance the natural character of Nevada and the quality of life for Nevadans through effective advocacy, the election of pro-conservation candidates, and building collaboration. And our topic for discussion today is conserving democracy. And I'm glad to be joined here today by two representatives of the Human Rights Campaign, Danielle Brown and Alyssa Cortez. So can you guys give us a little bit of background about the Human Rights Campaign for those who don't know? What is the main mission? What are you guys aiming for?
Yeah, I can go. So the Human Rights Campaign is the largest LGBTQ civil rights organization in the nation. And right now we're working hard to mobilize and organize pro-equality Nevadans and pro-equality voters, supporters, and members of HRC that are a part of the LGBTQ community and also allies to ensure that we elect pro-equality candidates to represent us, and as well as pass legislation that is going to protect our community.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So we hear a lot about equality. So where are the places the LGBTQ community falls a little bit short in society?
Well, currently we're experiencing hardship in all the usual places. Housing, jobs, education, heck, even just using the bathroom, really. So we're trying our hardest right now to try and push for the Equality Act. The Equality Act is an expansion on, 1963's Civil Rights Act. And it's currently being held up in Congress. So we experience hardships in pretty much any sense, but that would solidify discrimination laws against discrimination for us, if it passes, when it passes.
Gotcha. So there's discrimination when you're applying to get a house, when you're applying to get a job, when you're just in general in society, when you're trying to use the restroom and stuff like that. So what is how can we change people's perspective and try to make people a little bit more accepting?
Promoting our visibility, supporting our visibility, promote even general acceptance, and heck, even tolerance, really. We're here, we exist, and quite frankly, this isn't a choice, and we're just trying to live.
So what I would add to what Danielle is saying is I would add that our steering committee, which Danielle is a part and includes sexual orientation and gender identity. So that is definitely one way to ensure that there is protections that are wide-ranging across the country rather than just each state having different protections, which thankfully in Nevada we have really great protections for the LGBTQ community, but of course a federal law would make that much, not just stronger, but more understood, more, what's the word I'm looking for? More widespread, obviously. So I think that is definitely a really important one.
Unfortunately, some states kind of need to be forced into it, sadly, through federal legislation. The Supreme Court just made the job discrimination part, pass that through the Supreme Court, but there's still all the other aspects that we're discriminated against. It's not just jobs. It's housing, education. There's a myriad of discrimination that the Equality Act would protect us against.
Okay, that sounds pretty good as far as not just being for jobs. I mean, preventing discrimination in multiple areas. Do you think that's actually going to be helpful, or do you think we need to change society's perspective more?
Helping with changing society's perspective is, of course, that would help. People do, there's still a large amount of people that don't perceive us as even really human in some cases. So changing the perspective is more of a social thing. As far as the legal aspect goes, the Equality Act will handle that legally. But changing society's perspective is more social, and that will take a lot more effort.
Yeah, I think some things like that might take a little bit of time, unfortunately. But I think we are making strides in the right direction of fairer laws, more equitable laws. I did want to bring up gay marriage because our country's made massive strides in the improvement, at least legally, of human rights in the past 20 years with gay marriage. And so, like, the first state to legalize gay marriage, Massachusetts, in 2004. And then there were 37 states that followed it. And in 2015, it was made federally legal. So I'm a little bit confused about that. I'm not exactly sure how it works. Does that just legalize it in all the states, or does that prevent them from illegalizing it?
It does make it legal in all 50 states. So that's why it was such a huge win for the LGBTQ community, because it wasn't left up to states' rights anymore. It was a federally protected right.
Okay, great. So do you think is it still not recommended to go into those states that didn't legalize it, or do you think people are safer off just staying in the states that legalized it in the first place? Like, do you think there's de facto discrimination in those states that didn't legalize it in the first place and only had it mandated federally?
That would kind of be up to the person themselves. I mean, it's kind of awful to tell people to get out of my state and go marry your person you love in a state that accepts you, when it's perfectly legal where they're at. So yeah, that's up to the person. There's still plenty of places that are absolutely terrifying to go to and drive through and all that other stuff. But you know, that those questions are always on the back of my head when I'm visiting friends in Kentucky, but or Missouri. I have a few friends there too. But God, the reason why that law passed is so that anyone who chooses to marry the person they love can marry the person they love in the state that they live in and probably also love. So
yeah, I agree with Danielle. I agree.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much for answering these kind of harder questions. I'm just trying to really gain perspective and kind of broadcast what reality is like. You know what I mean?
It's still really scary to go to those states. That question is completely in the back of my head. Can I get out of the car even? So yeah. Even though gay marriage is legal there in those places, people's perspectives are different, and it's still kind of scary.
Yeah, I've got to say that's kind of disappointing, just because I would hope it would be better by now, at least somewhat better than that. Yeah, actually, Danielle, you mentioned to me in a previous call that you were insulted in a job interview. Someone called you Caitlyn Jenner, and what kind of job were you applying for? And can you tell us a little bit more about that experience?
Yes, no problem. I was applying for a sales position as well as a warehouse person, basically a store clerk for a liquor store. And one of their employees recommended me through us talking through frequent customer interaction. And we hit it off, and he told his boss that I'd be coming over. And I went there. I actually dressed like a guy. And one of the owners was interviewing me for the job and said, everything seems pretty great, and this particular guy recommends you, so we'll go for it. And his partner, the other owner of the store, sees my nails are painted and says, no Caitlyn Jenner's here. And okay, I kind of just held in being extremely pissed off, and just kind of took it at shock value and walked out of the interview. And that was pretty much the end of it.
Yeah, so obviously I think we should change these kind of public outlooks and these stereotypes of LGBTQ individuals. What are some steps we do to change that public outlook? Is that just a matter of having conversations with our friends and family and inviting our LGBTQ friends over and not excluding them? Or is there something more that we can do to help change these perspectives?
Winning of hearts and minds is a tough issue. Definitely takes some work. What you just said is a fantastic start, but there's some deeper parts to dive into on that one. Alyssa?
Yeah, I would say just continuing to have these transparent conversations about unfortunate encounters that we have with, transphobic or homophobic people, and how, that's not okay, and make sure that we call it out, and allies are there to support us when, things like this are happening, and make sure that we know that it's still an active problem. It's not something of the past. So recognizing that as well, I think, is important.
Great. So admitting it's a problem, calling it out when it happens. I would have to add maybe sharing stories like yours where, hey, this terrible thing happened, I was really discriminated against, and this is a personal story. And that, I think personal stories really touch people. That kind of ties in. I guess it's not 100% relevant.
It's a little relevant there, but I'd like to add one more thing, and calling out for allies to be more involved. On social media, there's a lot of propaganda being slung out there now. And some of it's a little bit more undertone and working more as, very, I don't want to equate it to that, but very fascistic propaganda with heavy undertones, and some of them are blatant overtones of homophobia and transphobia. And if your friends are posting things, even if it's the same art style and it's from one of those propaganda outlets, call them out on it. If a lot of the stuff that's out there is just awful, and recently there's kind of a thing equating the LGBT community to pedophiles, and there's a lot of propaganda being put out there about that, and some of it is way less noticeable unless you look at a lot of propaganda and have studied some propagandists. It's call people out when you see it. Just call them out when you see it. It's getting brutal out there on social media. So definitely call out your friends when you see that level of propaganda on their Facebook or Instagram or whatever.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, people that are just standing by and not doing anything are oftentimes just as guilty as the perpetrators, right?
Exactly.
Great. Well, I'm sincerely hoping that these conversations and your story and this topic will change some perspectives. And yeah, I hope we can make some big changes and big strides in this in the coming years. Do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to close with?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everyone to make sure they fill out the census, make sure that they're registered to vote in Nevada, make sure that they're comfortable, that we're probably going to all be voting by mail this November. So I would remind them to look at our endorsed candidates list as well to make sure they're supporting LGBTQ allies and community members this year.
I also like to invite everybody to our Third Thursday events, which are currently being held via Zoom. So yeah, little fun, social, fun and games, win prizes events. And if you're able to and you live in Southern Nevada and you want to sign up and volunteer with us, we'll have more fun events and hopefully some events that we're tabling out at and participating at. And, once there's a vaccine and this COVID thing cools down a little bit.
Great, thanks. I'm hoping to check out some of those events here shortly. I do want to go back to what Alyssa just said, because I think a lot of people feel hopeless, like they don't have the ability or the power to make change. And voting for people that will support things that you want to change in the direction you want to change them in is one way that you do have power, that you can make change or get someone in power that can make change for us to move society in the proper direction. So thank you so much. I just really appreciate you guys coming on our show. And so this was the Sustainability Podcast. And please, if you get a chance, check out Nevada Conservation League Facebook page for some fun content we're putting out. And also, if you get a chance, check out hrc.org. Thanks for hanging out.